last week we talked about, we're talking about neighboring countries, and last week we talked about Canada and Mexico. So now you should be on page 87. We're going to be talking about Central America and the Caribbean, and then later on we'll talk about Greenland. So we have pages 87 through 89 to read. Please focus. Please be ready to answer these questions. Please be ready to find the answers in the textbook. There is no excuse for not being able to find these answers. Do not just sit there and wait for somebody else to answer. Be looking so that you can answer as well. You should already have your vocab notebooks open with a squiggly line underneath the words we did last week. And then we're continuing, so we're still in the same lesson, so all you need is today's date. December 14th, 2020. And then we will be starting with number 3. Once you have your squiggly line with today's date and number 3, go ahead and put your notebook under your textbook and be ready to read on page 87. Aaron, please read on page 87. Loud and slow. Start with the title. Everybody should be ready with their finger or bookmark ready to follow along.
Central America and the Caribbean.
A little louder. Remember, your face is kind of facing to the front, so you can even put your book in your lap. I mean, that's perfect, yeah.
Central America and the Caribbean. Central
Gotta be
America.
louder. You've gotta, I can barely hear what you're saying, so I know, like, back there they can. Which means the camera's definitely not picking up what you're saying. Like, you're yelling here.
Central America is part of North America. So two are the islands of the Caribbean.
Oh, the Caribbean, so you've got to be loud. We cannot hear you, otherwise I'm gonna call on somebody else. Like, yell, Aaron. When I say yell, you get like the teeniest bit louder, but not loud enough to where we can hear you.
Central America. Central America is a region that is made up of narrow.
Go ahead. You know that word. Just sound it out. Every letter sounds exactly as it should.
Strip of land. Central America is a region that is made up of a narrow strip of land that connects North and South America. This region is divided into 7 countries. The Pacific Ocean forms Central America's western boundary. The Caribbean Sea, which is part of the Atlantic Ocean, shapes the region's eastern boundary.
So if we look at this map on towards the top of page 87, we see that this map shows Central America and the Caribbean. Well, we just talked about Central America. Which countries show Central America? Or which group of countries shows Central America in the textbook? We're looking at the map on page 87. Which group of countries shows Central America? Victoria. The orange countries. How do you know that? Girls at home, heads up, please.
Because there is a box down below and it says the green is the Caribbean islands and the orange is Central America.
Because if we look for the map key, it shows us the green countries show the Caribbean islands. The orange shows Central America. So we see Central America is between what country and what continent? What country borders Central America to the north? What country is that? We know this. Mason? Not the Caribbean Sea. Listen to my question. What country do we see that borders Central America to the north? What country is that? Carla?
The Atlantic Ocean.
Please listen to my question. Am I saying what ocean or what sea or what anything? I am saying what country. We know what country that is. you were listening last week, you know exactly what it is. If you are not, well then I can see right now you're just waiting for everybody else, which is not fair to the 3 people that are participating. Zari, what country is that? We can look at the map. Okay, so if we look at this map, we know the country to the north of Central America is what? Colin.
South America.
The country to the north of Central America is what? Zadie.
Mexico.
Mexico. The continent to the south of Central America is what? Carla.
South America.
South America. Now everybody should have been raising their hands because somebody already said the answer. So that tells me that you weren't listening. Now, what borders, let's see, what forms Central America's western boundary or border? What is to the west of Central America? We know to the north is Mexico, to the south is South America. What is to the west? Is the answer here? Does it say in the map? So should you be looking at the map? Victoria? The Pacific Ocean. How do you know that? Did you just know that from before?
No.
What does it say in the book?
It says the Pacific Ocean forms Central America's western boundary.
So were you the only one that was able to come up with that answer? No. But yet we had to wait. What forms the eastern boundary of Central America? Is the answer out here? Where's the answer? Where should you be looking for this answer if you don't remember it? You're still not doing it. Some of you are just staring at the book, not actually reading, waiting for somebody else to answer. Ethan? Nope. Kingston? The Caribbean Sea. Did you just know that because you already knew that? Where was it? In the book. Where does it say what the eastern boundary is in the book?
The Caribbean Sea is a part of the Atlantic Ocean shaped for the eastern boundary.
It says it, word for word. Where else can we see, by looking at the book, what the eastern boundary is? There's somewhere else we can look too. Carla?
We can look on the map.
On the map, it says what's to the east. We see the orange that represents Central America, and then we see to the east is the Caribbean Sea. So there's 2 places we could have found that, and yet you still all waited. Not all of you, but a lot of you waited for somebody else to answer. That is not okay. And it is the reason why you're not doing so well on your homework, because there's nobody else to answer the question, so you just guess really quick. Okay. Now, we just talked about Central America. What are we reading about next? Victoria.
We are reading about the Caribbean.
Okay, everybody, finger or bookmark, ready to follow along. Victoria, as soon as you're ready, go ahead, loud and slow, like you're yelling.
The Caribbean. Hundreds of islands lie off the east coast of Central America and the Caribbean Sea. Together, these islands make up the Caribbean region. Some of the islands, such as Cuba, are large. Others are so small and have so few resources that no one lives on them. Several Caribbean islands are part of other countries. Puerto Rico, for example, is a
It's a compound word, so it's 2 small words. Common, what?
well,
So what is that word altogether?
Commonwealth.
Okay, so with confidence, no question at the end.
Puerto Rico, for example, is a commonwealth of the United States. Beginning
Not not beginning. Go slow.
Being a commonwealth means that it is a territory of the United States, but that it governs itself.
So what's our third vocab word?
Commonwealth.
Commonwealth. It's a compound word. We have two smaller words that make it up. We have the word common, and we have the word wealth. That come together to form one word that means what, Victoria?
That means it is a territory of the United States, but that it governs itself.
So what it is an area of land that is a territory of one country, but governs itself. So an example of that is Puerto Rico. Even though the United States technically owns Puerto Rico, they govern themselves. That means they don't necessarily have to listen to our government, our federal government. They are not a state. They have their own president. They have their own government. They do not share a government with us. However, the United States does technically own that land. Victoria, when you're finished, finish out that paragraph.
People who are citizens of Puerto Rico are also citizens of the United States.
Good. So even though they don't really have to follow most of our laws, they are still citizens of the United States because the United States owns that land. Nobody should be turning the page yet. Okay, so let's look at this map again. Which countries are part of the Caribbean islands? Zari.
The ones that have green on it.
The ones that are green. And how did you know that, Zari?
Because it says on the map key, it says Caribbean islands in Central America and has green and orange for it.
Okay, so if we look at the map key and we look for Caribbean islands, we see that they are green. So if we look at this map, we see all those green islands from the teeny tiny ones to the much larger ones are all part of the Caribbean island. Do any of these countries touch the United States, Central America, or South America? Zadie?
No.
No, but how do we know that without even having to look at them? What do they have in the name that tells us they're not going to touch any other country? Come on, guys. Zadie?
It says that they're Caribbean islands.
And what are islands?
They're pieces of lands that aren't touching anything.
They're surrounded on all sides by what? An island is surrounded on all sides by what? Mason? Water. Remember, a peninsula is different. We talked about a peninsula. How many sides does a peninsula have that touch water? How many sides of a peninsula touch water? Victoria?
I think 3.
3. Or if it's a weird shape, all but one. Like there's only one piece connecting it to the land. An island doesn't connect to land at all. Okay. Do people live on every island in the Caribbean? Page 87. Do people live on every single island in the Caribbean? Mason?
No.
No. How do you know that?
Because some places you can't live because they have so many trees and just turn into houses.
How did you know that? Did you know that already before this lesson?
No.
No. Where does it tell you?
Some of the islands such as Cuba,
A little louder.
some of
Some of the islands, such as Cuba, are large. Others are small and have so few resources that no one lives on.
So again, the answer comes straight from the book. Others are so small and have so few resources that no one lives on them. Okay, go ahead and turn the page. We're still talking about the Caribbean islands. Michaela, please read next. Everybody finger ready.
There were Virginia,
Virgin, there's no A at the end.
the Virgin Islands of the United States, or the U.S.
A little louder. A little louder.
Virgin Islands are also a territory of the United States.
So just like Puerto Rico, the United States does technically own the land, but they govern themselves. They have their own leader. They don't follow most of our laws. Some of them they do, but it's mostly just because they have the same ones. Keep going.
About 50 small islands make up this territory. People who live on the U.S. Virgin Islands are citizens of the United States as well.
Do you think there are a lot of people living in the U.S. Virgin Islands? Think about it before you raise your hand. Do you think there's a lot of people living on the U.S. Virgin Islands? Well, guys, everybody is able to come up with an answer. This is making an inference. Aaron? No. Why do you think, even though but there's 50 islands that make it up, why do you think there's not many people living on it? You came up with that answer for some reason. I'm not saying you're wrong.
It says that there's 50 small islands to live on, so that might be really small islands. So there might not be many people in each island.
Why does the fact that it says there are 50 small islands make you think, there might not even be some people on some of those islands? What did you make an inference about? What did you use to make that inference that they're small islands, so there may not be many people on them, if any at all? What prior knowledge did you have, even if you just had it a few minutes ago, tells you that, small islands may not have many people or any living on it? Carla?
But when you look in the text,
Uh-huh.
it said that there was not that much resource.
So good. Because we learned on the page before, the part that I think, well, Mason reread it to us. Victoria read it. Mason reread it to us. That some islands are so small, there's not enough resources for people to live on. So the fact that the U.S. Virgin Islands is made up of 50 small islands, well, a lot of those islands may have nobody living on them. So there's probably not a whole lot of people, even though there's a lot of islands. Okay. Michaela, please keep reading. Everybody, finger a pencil, ready to follow along. Carla, I don't know where you're going, but you've got to follow along.
Land and climate.
A little louder.
Central America and the Caribbean are both located in the tropics.
Not topics. Go slow. Close, but you have to add an extra letter in there. You skipped a letter.
Central America and the Caribbean are both located in the tropics. This area and the equator.
Not and the equator. Go slow. Read the whole word. This area.
This area around the equator has a warm climate of all year.
Okay. So, what's our next word, Michaela?
Tropics.
What is it?
Tropics.
Tropics. And what are the tropics?
Tropics are Central America and the Caribbean.
Well, they are in the tropics, but what are the tropics? If you can't find a good definition there, where could you look? But keep you keep one hand on that page. or something, and then go to the glossary and find a better answer. Remember, it's almost all the way in the back of the book, but if you get to the end index, you've gone too far. It's right before the index. It says, I think it's turquoise, and it says, it's a turquoise tab that says glossary. That's not the right page. Yeah, so you can use that. And remember, once we get to the glossary, just like a dictionary, everything is in alphabetical order.
Can I say what page it's on?
Loud.
Tropics are warm regions between the tropics of center and the tropic of Capricorn.
Okay, so the tropics are the warmest areas on Earth, and use what it says in the book, Michaela. Near what? Look, use what it says in the lesson. So, tropics are the warmest areas near what?
Near Central America.
Not near Central America, because the tropics are all around the world. But near what? Tropics are not only in South and Central America. That would mean the only place we could have tropics is right here where we saw that map, but that's not the case. Cullen?
The equator.
Loudly.
The equator.
So the warmest areas on Earth near the equator. Do you see that, Michaela?
Yeah.
And the equator goes all around the whole planet, right? Okay. Michaela, once you're finished, go ahead and keep reading. Everybody, once you're finished, find where we left off. Use your finger or a bookmark to follow along. Loud and slow, so that everybody, including the camera, can pick you up.
Because of the warmth and large amount of precipitation, rain forests cover much of the land in these two tropical regions. A rainforest is a wet area, usually warm in which tall trees, vines, and other plants grow close together.
So, what's our fifth word, Michaela? Rainforest. And what is a rainforest?
A rainforest is a wet area, usually warm, in which tall trees, vines, and other plants grow close together.
So, a wet area in which tall trees, vines, and other plants grow close together. Now, are rainforests always warm? How do we know they're not always warm? How do we know they're not always warm? Zari?
Because sometimes if it's like raining really hard, it can get windy.
That's not true. Especially because in the rainforest there's not much wind because the trees are in the way. But how do we know that rainforests are not always warm? Victoria.
Maybe some aren't so close to the equator.
Okay, but look at what we have written here. A rainforest is a wet area, usually warm, in which tall trees, vines, and other plants grow close together. How do we know that rainforests are not always warm? Zadie.
Because the textbook says it's usually.
The textbook says it's usually warm. Does everybody see where it says usually warm? Does usually mean always? If something usually happens, does that mean it always happens? No, it means it happens a lot, but not every single time. Okay, Michaela, when you're done writing that, please continue reading.
Many people visit these regions to enjoy hiking in the forest.
Okay, we can see that down at the bottom. We see a picture of a rainforest, and it says, visitors to Central America's rainforests can walk across sky bridges. They might see birds, such as the toucan, perched high in the treetops. So this is kind of what a rainforest looks like, but it's very wet. May not necessarily be warm, so we may think, oh, I've seen places around here that look like this. But are they wet almost all year round? No. It's the rainfall is whatever the rest of it is. A rainforest, just like the name implies, has a lot of precipitation. Okay, Mason, please read next. Everybody, finger or bookmark, ready to follow along. Loud and slow, Mason.
Central America.
Louder.
Central America and the Caribbean have several mountains. In fact, many of the islands are the peaks of underwater mountains. Much of the land has fertile soil too.
What does that mean if it's fertile soil? What does that mean? Carla?
Wet.
Not wet. Fertile soil means what? What does that mean for that area? Mason?
It's good for growing.
It's good for growing things. So what do you think they might have a lot of in the much larger areas in Central America and the Caribbean? Hmm? Well, what would we do? Why would we need fertile soil? What would we want to put there? Smith?
Crops.
Crops, a farm. So they might have quite a bit of farming as long as there's enough space. But do you think there's a whole lot of space for farming especially in the Caribbean islands? No. So it's fertile soil, but sometimes they still can't use it for farming. Why would they maybe not be able to use it for farming even though it's so fertile? Zari.
Because there's still too many plants around in the fertile soil.
Well, we could just cut them down and then put a farm. But why can we still not even do that, even if we try to cut a lot of them down in the Caribbean islands? Michaela?
Because it might rain too much.
No, it says it's fertile soil, which means the weather is good enough that the soil is good. Zadie?
Because there might not be enough space.
There's not enough space. I'm trying to get you to understand that even though there are lots and lots of islands in the Caribbean island in this area, they are not all usable. So if we saw a land use and resource map, think about the land use and resource maps, what color would they be? Who remembers this? The soil is fertile, but there's not enough space. Think about those land use and resources maps, like what we did in the book. What color would they be? Zari.
White.
White, because white means what? What did white mean, Zari?
That it wasn't used for a lot of things.
Little used land. So even though it has really good soil, if there's not enough space for anybody to live or farm or do anything, are they going to use it, class? No.
No.
Okay, keep going.
It helps farmers grow coffee, sugarcane, and bananas, and other tropical fruits. Both regions also rely on selling goods and services to many visitors that come each year.
Now the reason they added that sentence, both regions also rely on selling goods and services to the many visitors that come each year. Think about when people go on cruises or like big vacations. Where do they tend to go, especially on cruises? Where do they tend to go, Victoria? Where people go on their honeymoons?
To tropical places also.
To tropical places. Has anybody in here been on a cruise? Where did you go?
I went to Alaska.
Well, that's different. But,
My mom.
Michaela, where did you go?
To the Bahamas.
To the Bahamas. Where are the Bahamas, class? Where are the Bahamas? Not Central America. Mason? The Caribbean. Where did you go, Zadie?
I was supposed to go to Hawaii, but it rained.
Oh, well, that's a little different, too. Anybody else been on a cruise? Zari, where did you go?
Also went to the Bahamas.
To the Bahamas. And some people, where did you go on a cruise, or were you telling me somebody else went on one?
Well, I technically went on a cruise, but it technically wasn't somewhere.
Huh?
I probably went everywhere, but then I don't know where. I don't know. I didn't really go
Okay.
somewhere.
Okay. Well, a lot of cruises go to this area. They go to Central America, or they go to the Caribbean islands. That's because there's a lot of tourism. Because what's the weather seem to be like a lot of times? Mason? Hot, warm. And if it's a bunch of islands, what is there a lot of? Mason? Water. But specifically what? Where do we like to go on vacation, or especially during the summer? Smith?
The beach.
The beach. So there's a lot of beaches. It's warm. The water's really pretty. So, of course, lots of people are going to go on vacation. So, tourism is a major economy in this area because lots of people go there on vacations. Okay, we have to keep going. So, everybody listen to this question. What parts of the Caribbean region are also parts of the United States? What parts? There are two of them. Cullen, tell me one.
Cuba.
Not Cuba. There are two parts of the Caribbean that are also parts of the United States. Zari, what's one?
The U.S. Virgin Islands.
The U.S. Virgin Islands, because they are a what of the United States, Zari?
They are a territory of the United States.
The U.S. Virgin Islands are a territory of the United States, so they are part of the United States. What other part of the Caribbean region are also a part of the United States? Kingston.
Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. Why? What is Puerto Rico? A commonwealth, which means it's owned by the United States. But do they have the same government? No. Okay, Mason. Oh, wait. Kingston and Zari, how did you know that? Did you just know that before this lesson? How did you
No.
know that? Zari, how did you know that the U.S. Virgin Islands were part of the United States because they are a territory of the United States?
It said in the book on the same page that we're on, the Virgin Islands of the United States or the U.S. Virgin Islands are also territory of the United States.
Good. And Kingston, how did you know that Puerto Rico was a part of the United States? A little louder.
It's because it says here, several Caribbean islands are part of other countries. Puerto Rico, for example, is a commonwealth of the United States.
So it says Puerto Rico is a commonwealth of the United States. Is the United States the only one, the only country that has territories in that area? No. How do you know? What tells you that the United States is not the only one? You may not know which other countries have land there, but what tells you by the way it says, or by what it says, what tells you that the United States isn't the only one? Kingston?
It says here, several Caribbean islands are part of other countries.
So, which part of that? Kingston said it says several Caribbean islands are part of other countries. What would it say if the United States was the only country that had land in the Caribbean region? What would it probably say? Now this is kind of just making, what do you think the author would say? Instead of several Caribbean islands are part of other countries.
All Caribbean islands are part of the United States.
Maybe not all Caribbean islands, but it might say some Caribbean islands are part of the United States. But it says other countries. So that means other countries do have territories there. Actually, there's the U.S. Virgin Islands and there's the British Virgin Islands. So that means some of the Virgin Islands are owned by us, some are owned by England. And I think there's other ones. I think there might be, France might own an island or two, but I'm not sure. Okay, Mason. Everybody ready to follow along? Mason, tell us where our fingers should be. Greenland. Greenland, not Greenland. Greenland. I mean, if you say Greenland, you're not necessarily wrong, but it's just not the way most people pronounce it. So, Mason, make sure that you are loud, like almost like you're yelling.
Greenland. The last region of North America is a huge island on the northeast coast of Canada. It is Greenland, the world's biggest island.
So, does Greenland touch any other country? Does Greenland touch any other country? No. How do we know that? How do we know that it does not touch any other country? Come on, guys. All of you are able to answer this. Some of you I can see in your eyes that you're not paying attention. You may think you're being sneaky, and I'm not, but I mean I can see it in your eyes. Carla, how do we know that Greenland doesn't touch another country?
Because it says
I don't know what he did, like I said, we gave him what, right there, $1,000.
Zari, can you help her out?
That it's the biggest island.
So it's an island, which means what? It doesn't touch any other land. It only touches what?
The sea.
Water. The sea, the ocean, something. Water. And it's the world's biggest island. Where is it located? Where is it located? Michaela.
And the coast of Canada.
Off the coast of Canada. Which side? We're looking at a map. Here's Canada. Is it to the east of Canada or to the west of Canada? Michaela? The east. It says off the northeast coast of Canada. Okay, Mason, go ahead and keep going.
Because Greenland lies so far north, it has a very cold climate. Nearly all of its tundra are flat.
That's a comma, not a period. So you pause there instead of, you just do a quick pause and then keep going instead of stopping.
A flat.
So a flat,
A flat. Treeless plain.
can't hear you. You're fine. You got it.
Treeless plain that stays mostly frozen.
So Mason, what's our next word? Number 6.
Tundra.
Tundra. And what is a tundra?
A flat, treeless plain that stays mostly frozen.
A flat, treeless plain that stays mostly frozen. So, are there many mountains in the tundra? Probably not. Is there much plant life? Not much, especially not trees. What does the word treeless mean? What does the word treeless mean? Carla.
treeless means there is no tree anywhere.
It means there's no trees or very little trees. We can tell that because we see tree with the suffix less. If you see the suffix, that means letters added to the end of a noun, it means there are none of those things. It's treeless. That means there are no trees. Okay, Mason, when you're done, keep going. Well, I can say something really quick, I guess. So now we know that North America has all different kinds of climates. It can be super hot and wet, like in the tropics, and then it can be really cold and kind of dry. It's just so cold that even though it doesn't like snow a lot, all the water that is there stays frozen. Tundra is usually pretty dry too. So we have everything from hot and wet in the tropics to cold and dry in the tundra, and then we have us in between, which is called a temperate climate. That means it really doesn't get too hot or too cold. It's just kind of in the middle. Did you want to say something?
Can anybody live in the tundra?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do they live in the country?
They figure it out. There's still plant life. There's just not big, tall trees. It's like the desert. We don't really have too many tall trees in the desert, but there's still lots of desert plants. It's just the trees that we think of can't survive in the tundra, but there are lots of other plants that can survive in the tundra. So they do still get oxygen from that. And look, what is he doing that shows you how one way they can get food? Aaron. He's ice fishing. So you cut a hole in the ice and you fish. But how else do you think, are they, just because of where they are they not able to get any resources they need? How could they probably be getting resources they need? They need wood, but they don't really have trees. They need fruits and vegetables, but there's probably not places to farm. So how do they get those things? Do they just live without it? Do they only live on fish and water from melted snow? Zari, how do they get those things?
Like they would, like, let's say another country or whatever, they would lend them a hand and give them some food to live on.
Good. So they just get imports, remember we learned that word, from other countries. Other countries send them what they need. Do they just give it to them because they need it? What do you think Greenland has to do and the people of Greenland have to do to get the other countries to send it to them? Cullen. Smith.
They have to trade.
Well, they can trade, but Greenland, do you think there's much to trade there? I mean, maybe some fish. So what do you think they have to do for what they don't have something to trade for? They don't have many industries because it's too cold, so there's probably not a lot of people. Mason?
They have to pay them money?
They just have to pay them money. They have to pay for those objects or for those items, and they have to pay to get it there. So do you think it might be kind of expensive to live in Greenland? Probably more expensive than you'd think it would be. Okay, Mason, go ahead and keep reading. Everybody, finger or bookmark, ready to follow along. Loud and slow.
Greenland is a territory of Denmark, a country in Europe.
So is Greenland its own country? What is it? Victoria? A territory. So that means what? Does it own its own land? No. So what does it mean?
It means that it is a country.
Is it a country? We just talked about how it's not a country.
Oh, a territory.
So it's a territory. That means it doesn't own its own land. So who does?
Denmark.
Denmark. We don't know if it's just a territory or a commonwealth. If it's a territory, that means they go by Denmark's laws. If it's a commonwealth, that means they have their own government. I'm not really sure which one it is. Okay, keep going.
Still, very few
We'd say Danish.
Danish people live there. Most Greenlanders are native people called
That is a long U. Everything else sounds exactly how it's spelled. Confidence.
Inuit.
Not in unit. There's no N. Cover up everything but the IN. How would you say that? Confidence. In. Confidence. So hear how your voice is going up. It should go down at the end. Cover up everything but the U, and I told you that was long U, so what does that sound like? U. Cover up everything but the IT. How would you say that? It, but confidence. So in, you, it. How would you say that? If you squish it all together. Not in unit, you're putting an N. There's no N. That would be INUNIT, but it's in, you, it. So squish it all together into one word. Inuit. That is what we think of. This is not actually what you call them, but when we think of Eskimos, those are Inuit people, but it's better to call them Inuit. They don't like to be called Eskimos. Some of them don't. Some of them are fine, but it's like, because it's different. It's like calling Native Americans Indians. We don't really say that.
What?
So Inuit is like what we think of when we think of Eskimos. Okay. Why does Greenland have such a cold climate? Why does Greenland have such a cold climate? Is the answer here? Where's the answer? Why does Greenland have such a cold climate? Aaron? It's cold in Greenland because it's so far north. So that means it's close to what? Michaela? The North Pole. And we know which parts of the earth are the coldest. Which parts? Smith?
The North Pole and the South Pole.
The North Pole and the South Pole. And I think in the next chapter of science, we'll find out why that is. Okay. Colin, please read the summary.
Go ahead.
Everybody ready to follow along?
Summary. Canada, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean islands,
Caribbean,
islands, and Greenland, and are the North American neighbors of the United States.
So remember, are they part of the United States? Are these other places, Canada, Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean islands, and Greenland, are they part of the United States? No. Are they part of North America? Why would they say they are the North American neighbors if they're not part of North America? That would not be a smart thing for your book to say. So again, I will ask you one more time. Canada, Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean islands, and Greenland, are they part of North America? Yes, because it literally says they are the North American neighbors of the United States. So that means they're near us. Which of these places, Canada, Mexico, Central America, the Caribbean islands, and Greenland, are north of the United States? Which of these places? Mason. Canada and Greenland. So that means what about the others? What does that mean about the others? Zari.
They're south.
Which ones? Tell me specifically.
Mexico and the Caribbean islands.
Is that
Are
it?
south.
Is that it? Mexico and the Caribbean islands? What else, Ethan? Mexico, the Caribbean islands, and Michaela? And Central America are south of us. Ethan, Canada and Greenland are north of us. Okay, you will have homework. So girls at home, go ahead and get it out. Front. We see outlines of some countries, and then we see a word bank. There is, if you're not sure, if you can't figure it out, there is a map of the world towards the back of your textbook. So if you need help, you know it's going to be one of those countries. If you can't figure out which one it is, look at the map of the world in the back of your textbook and match it. Then look at the back. It is fill in the blank. Almost every single one of these sentences where you have to fill in the blank is almost exactly written word for word in this lesson. And I know that I'm going to have a lot of people turning this in completely done wrong. Because if you don't open the book and you don't actually read through it again, then you're just going to write some random word. Please use your book. You have 3 more assignments of social studies. This, the extra credit everybody's going to do tomorrow, and your test. If you have a very low grade right now, like a D or an F, you better do your absolute best on these 3 assignments, and maybe you can bring it up 1 letter grade. Maybe. Does everybody understand? Okay. Go ahead and put that in your take-home folder.